In my opinion, the single most important lesson in watch collecting is explained and identified in this particular episode of Watching James. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. And if you've watched my videos before, if you've left comments in my videos before, you will know that I read and respond to all of them. I try to do personalized messages back to all of you. Sometimes it ends up being a little bit of a generic response because perhaps I've had a lot of comments to respond to at that time, but I definitely read all of them. And I want to say a huge thank you to all of you for commenting. And I want to say a huge thank you to one of you today for leaving a specific comment. A comment that I'm going to talk about. A comment that I think really explains my favorite and most important lesson that I've learnt throughout watch collecting. Now, I want you to be aware, if you're the one that left this comment, today I am not making fun of you. Today I'm not criticizing you. I'm using this one because it is very important. I think this idea is very important. And even though I think your comment was trying to be on a slight negative perspective, I actually appreciate it. I understand it, and I like the passion that you have for watches. I do occasionally get some slightly negative comments, but when I see them, I don't see negative comments. What I see is passion. Passion for watches, some strong opinions about watches. And one of the strongest opinions that is formed about watches tends to be surrounding the idea of homages. A while back, I released this video up here. It talked about a number of homage watches that I really like, and I really like them for different reasons. And in fact, I thought they were better than the originals in lots of different ways. And that video explained why that was. And because I was talking about homage watches, and because I was trying to say that these homage watches were fantastic and should be considered over the originals, of course it drew some particular comments. And I want to read you this comment today. Now, I'm going to put it up on screen, but I'm not going to put the person's name, but let me read it out to you. So, okay, yeah, don't buy a Porsche 911 because you can't afford it. Then buy a Karmann gear and try and sell people how it was as good as a Porsche because it was designed by Porsche and you can put a 911 motor in it. Yeah, that's even you need to tell yourself, because at the end of the day, it's not the real thing, it's a knockoff. It's not a complete fake, but whatever you need to tell yourself, people need to stop telling BS. Tell the truth, you can't afford one. You want one, but you can't for whatever reason. So you buy a Clomage because you want to look like one, you own the real thing, because if you don't want the real thing, you can never buy it, or Clomage, and it goes on a little bit. The basic idea, I understand. The passion behind this idea, I understand. Don't buy the Homage, buy the real thing. If you can't buy the real thing, well, don't buy a Homage watch, buy something else. But he used an example in this one, and I found it, let's say I found it rather amusing. He used the idea of a Karmann gear versus a Porsche. Now, if you're a watch collector, you probably tend to like cars as well, or at least you have an understanding of cars. There seems to be a little bit of a link, probably because it's guys that like watches and guys tend to like cars as well. But I think there's a bit of another sort of link between them because they're these engineered things, things that you use, things that you think about. And I certainly love watches, as you know. And I also love cars. But what's funny about this particular example, he mentions this Karmann gear. If you're not aware of the Karmann gear, it's a car that came out in the 60s and 70s. It was a sort of a car that, as he mentioned, was designed by the people that designed Porsche, or one of the designers. And of course, I'm sure you know what a Porsche looks like. But what is really funny about this is I would pick the Karmann gear over the Porsche every day of the week. And that is because I have loved the Karmann gear since I was a teenager. It's one of my favorite all-time cars. I would pick that over a Porsche. And I would pick the Karmann gear over a Porsche knowing that it doesn't have the heritage of the Porsche, knowing that it is not as well made as the Porsche, knowing that it's probably not as comfortable as the Porsche, knowing that it is not as nice to drive as the Porsche, knowing that the resale is probably not as good as a Porsche, knowing that it is not as good as a Porsche. But I would pick the Karmann gear. I'd pick it because I love it. Now let's transpose this over to a Rolex and a homage of a Rolex. One of my favorite homages of the Rolex, the Jeanneau. I would pick the Jeanneau over the Rolex. I think It's nice. I enjoy wearing it more. I actually like the style of it. I like the quality of it. I prefer the pricing of it. Again, it's no Rolex, but I would choose it. I would choose the Karman Gear over the Porsche. And that, I think, is important. It's because I understand what I like. I like certain designs. I like certain things for certain reasons. I pick certain things for certain reasons. I'm not picking it because it's a brand name. I'm not picking it because it's the original. I like the idea, perhaps sometimes owning the original, but it's not the main driving factor for me personally. So understanding my own drive, sorry for the pun, behind why I buy certain watches or certain cars, not that I own either of the cars that I've been mentioning today, but understanding why I like one over the other is something that I find rather important. But that leads me to something else, because there is a piece of advice which I think is both the best piece of advice and the worst piece of advice. Hi James, I'm thinking about buying a watch. What should I actually buy? Well James, you should definitely buy what you like. Oh, that's great, I should buy what I like. So James, what should I buy? Well, buy what you like? I don't know. So telling somebody to buy what they like, I think sounds like a good idea or a good piece of advice, but I think without a lot more surrounding understanding or information, it doesn't really help anybody. Telling somebody buy what you like is not really helpful. I think the piece of advice should be something a little bit different. Hi James, I'm thinking about buying a watch. What should I buy? Well, James, I think you should buy a watch that you like, but it's going to probably take a little bit of time, energy, thought, research, buying and selling to actually find out and identify what you like. I think you should try to think about what watch designs you like, what sizes of watches designs you like, colors, what you're actually going to use them for, what you're actually going to wear. I think you should then try some, go try some on, perhaps talk to lots of people about the designs that they like and why they like them. You should probably then buy the ones that you think are the right ones within a price range that you're comfortable with. Then sort of get a bit of an understanding of what you actually like and dislike about it. And as you go through this collecting experience of buying watches and probably selling some watches, come to understand why some watches stay in your collection and are worn more often than the others, and then get a really understanding of what you actually like, refine that process, refine those things, and then buy what you like. Well, that makes a lot of sense, but it also seems to be quite a lot, and it's going to take me a little bit of time to do that. Yes, it is, and that is all part of this watch collecting experience, and it is probably one of the funnest parts of this watch collecting experience, going down this watch collecting journey. And you'll end up with some lovely watches that you like as well. And that's what I try to do with my own collecting sort of experience. Refine what I like, decide why certain watches stay in my collection longer than others, decide that I like certain cars over other cars, and not worry too much about other people's thoughts about these things. Don't worry about people like me telling you stuff on YouTube. I know it can be interesting, but possibly it can be helpful, but really just absorb that information no matter where it's coming from, and then make your own decisions. Understand why you're buying a watch for that watch, why you're buying that watch and then keeping it in a collection versus perhaps selling other watches. And I know not everybody sells their watches, but as I've been going down this watch collecting journey, learning what really resonates with me at the time of purchase, but what also resonates with me later on down the track, and why certain watches stay in the collection is really important. So when it comes to that comment, I think it's important to know that we all have different opinions. I think it's really nice that people have different passionate thoughts about watches, but I think it's really important to really understand that not everybody likes the same things, and that we're all different, and that we should all just appreciate those differences. Thanks for watching, guys. Maybe check these videos out next.